justice.
Someday, CPD detectives are going to knock on your door, and you're going to go to jail.
There will be a day when we can say rest in peace, Mom. We know what happened.
Okay, folks, if you have any information, please call the Clearwater Police Department. Here's the number, 727-562-4141, 727-562-4141. Also posted the story on Facebook. You can share it, spread it around, and see if someone knows something. Think about this for just a moment. I mean, 88 and 80 years old. You've lived long lives. I mean, who on earth would target this nice couple who's just trying to, live out their golden years down in beautiful, beautiful Sarasota, beautiful Clearwater. Sarasota's beautiful too, but Clearwater's beautiful. I mean, it doesn't make sense. You would think it was a break-in or robbery, but apparently investigators are saying no, they are targeted. Let's bring in our special guest tonight, retired crime lab director of the San Diego Police Department. Jennifer Shen is with us. Jennifer, let's start first before we get to the crime scene. We're gonna go to the crime scene, but 88 and 80 years old, I am shocked that they would be the target of anything other than, hello, a nice hug, great to see you. I don't get it. I don't get it.
I know. And, I've been in the business for a long time, and it's the elder abuse cases that really just get you in the gut. Child abuse and elder abuse, because, they've lived a long life. They've had a successful life. This is the time they get to enjoy each other and enjoy their life. And to come to such a violent end, it just hurts. It's just so shocking and upsetting. And I can't imagine what their family is going through.
All right, let's go to the crime scene now, which is their home. Wonderful home, shot to death. So what type of evidence would you expect to find or would you look for at a scene like that?
Well, in a shooting, you're typically looking for evidence of that shooting, which would be fired cartridge cases. You're trying to figure out how many shooters were there and where were the shooters located and where were our victims located. So what's going to go on in this case is a shooting reconstruction where they're going to look at all of the evidence at the crime scene and then try to reconstruct the events that left that evidence where it was found. So it would be very interesting to know how many cartridge cases were recovered, and did they come from one weapon or two weapons? Does it look like they were shot at different times in different places? They're really going to try to figure out what happened at that scene. And when they know what happened, that can help them with their investigation.
So let's talk. I always hear this word thrown around. As I always say, I learned everything I need to learn about criminal investigation by watching. It began with Kojak and worked its way all the way up to Law and Order. But ballistics, we always hear that term, ballistics. Yeah. So what can you get in terms of ballistic evidence, and how can that help you track down a killer?
Well, in this case, you're going to be looking for a few things ballistic-wise. You're going to be looking to see what firearms evidence was left at the scene. And by looking at fired cartridge cases or missiles that were left at the scene, you can determine what type of weapon was used. You can also tell by looking at the ammunition that was left at the scene how many weapons were used. And then they're going to do a reconstruction. Where was your shooter standing, or shooters, and where were the victims? And the last thing they can do is they can look at the victims and they can see how close the shooter was. So was the shooter right up against them? Was it a contact wound? Were they across the room? Were they a few feet away? You can get that kind of information. So when you do all of that, you can have information that can be taken from the scene and then used in the crime laboratory to see if you can identify not only what kind of weapon was used, but which weapon was used. And that's by comparing the cartridge cases to a huge database of cartridge cases to see if that gun had been used in any other shootings.
Any opportunity, or is it rare to get any sort of DNA off of a cartridge or something left behind from a shooting?
That is a really great question. In San Diego Police Department, we conducted a very large study about 3 or 4 years ago and determined that you can, in fact, get DNA off of fired cartridge cases with a very specific procedure. And so it's used all the time in San Diego in all the shooting cases, and it's being used more and more across the country. And that would be something here. I would be very interested to know if they did DNA analysis using that newer technique on those fired cartridge cases, because then not only do you have the cartridge cases to put in a database to see what weapon may have shot those missiles, but you also have DNA that maybe can be linked to a person. And that, of course, would be a huge investigative lead.
Right. And there's, okay, so let's say you got some DNA off of a cartridge in this case. The person's that you're looking for, their DNA would have to be in some database somewhere, right?
Correct.
But and there are no suspects in any of this, but you want to eliminate people. Could you determine if it was a family member if you had the DNA from the two victims and you had the DNA from the cartridge? Would you be able to eliminate family members?
Yeah, so a really great thing about DNA is it not only does it point you to a possible suspect, but it also allows you to eliminate people. So whenever we do any kind of DNA analysis, we always want to get the DNA from the victims and the family members to exclude them. So in this case, if you did find DNA from the family members on the cartridge cases, that would be certainly of interest. But it's a very great tool for exonerating or excluding people as well as including.